I loved my 25 years in commercial television and radio, making a difference, growing people's brands and connecting with an audience. But I now find myself at Light FM, where I get to connect your brands with our community and your customers and have an impact, but that goes on to have such an impact in Melbourne and change people's lives. My name's Daryl Mitchell. I'm the Sales Director here at Light FM, and it's our pleasure to bring Nona Jones, the Head of Faith-Based Partnerships for Facebook globally in San Francisco, to Melbourne here for you this morning. So shortly we'll welcome Nona to the stage, but just really quickly, the format for this morning will be a keynote from Nona, who has an amazing background. She's not only, I'll have to read this out, there's too many things listed here. She's a preacher, a teacher, an author, a business executive, and she's also a singer, I believe, as well, an entrepreneur, a media personality, and a worship leader. So how's that for a CV, and just to fit that onto one page? So certainly we've got a wealth of experience, and fresh from the CMAA conference on the Gold Coast, a very engaging presenter, so I'm really looking forward to this morning. So when Nona takes the stage, it'll take us through to about 9:30, where she'll give us some key takeaways for your business or your mission on how you can use Facebook and to innovate and connect and engage. 9:30, we'll have some questions. So we've got a couple of microphones there. So think of your questions, write them down. Make sure we get some good ones, a couple of tough ones, to get some good interaction with Nona, and you'll really get some key takeaways. For me, this will be a successful morning if you walk out and there's something you can do to make a difference at the end of this morning's session. So that's my hope and wish for everybody. So if you want an engaged, empowered and growing community for your brand, I reckon you'll certainly get a lot out of this morning. So at 9:30, we'll have our questions, then we'll finish up at 10 o'clock. And at that point, I want to get everybody up on the stage so we can get a nice picture and we can push that out on our Facebook community. So 89.9 Light FM, that'd be the appropriate thing to do. I think that we can all remember from this morning there'll be an opportunity after 10 o'clock for about half an hour before Nona heads off to enjoy some sightseeing around Melbourne. So if you need to get a photo or there's any interview opportunities that you want to grab before Nona heads off to do some sightseeing, and then she's off on a plane. So it's my privilege to welcome Nona and bring her up to the stage for this great session this morning. So please welcome Nona Jones to the stage.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great, awesome. So it's funny, I was so excited to get up here that I tripped and almost died as I was walking up here. I think my excitement is like overshadowing me. So I'm so thrilled to be here. I want to thank the team for inviting me to come. And this is my first time to Australia. I'm in love. I was actually just telling my husband yesterday, I feel like we have to move here because just the laid back culture, I think everyone has just been so kind and so generous to me. So just honored to spend some time with you. The title Head of Faith-Based Partnerships at Facebook is one of those things where people are like, how exactly did that even happen? So I always like to start with just that so that people know how I even ended up where I am. So, I've never worked in technology or social media before. I actually have worked in the private sector. I've worked in the nonprofit arena. I've worked for government in the public sector in the States. But I was most recently working for an organization. It was a statewide network of alternative schools in the state of Florida, which is where I live. Geographically, Florida is as far southeast as you can get in the U.S. And so I flew literally from the east of the U.S. here. So, but I was doing something that I loved. The network of schools worked with girls who had experienced trauma. And although I don't have time to go into my personal story today, I had a pretty traumatic upbringing. There was a lot of abuse, neglect, just a lot of challenging experiences in my childhood. And this school system worked with girls who were very much so like me. And so the mission of what the organization did just resonated with my heart. And I thought I would be doing that forever. I had planned to do that forever. But it was 4 years in, April of 2017. And as a person of faith, I was in prayer. And I was seeking the Lord for, Lord, what is it that you would have me to do? I was seeking him for wisdom. And I felt in my spirit as I was praying, I felt that I heard the words, "This assignment is over." Now, imagine you're doing something that you love, right? Like you're doing something you love, you're in the rhythm of it, you plan to do it for the next 20 years or so, and you sense that this assignment is over. And it was confusing to me because I was like, well, this is not what I want, so what does this mean? So I assumed I heard incorrectly, and I prayed some more, and I was like, all right, Lord, I really need to hear the truth here. And I heard it again, this assignment is over. So I prayed and I asked God just for some revelation about, all right, what do you want me to do next? And the only thing that I heard the Lord say was to resign at the end of that fiscal year, which would have been June 30th, 2017. So speed ahead from April to June, and the day comes, it's a Friday. I sit down with my boss at 1:00 p.m. I gave her my letter of resignation. And I said to her that I was leaving. And of course, she said to me, well, what are you going to do next? Because I need to be able to tell people something. Like I can't just say Nona's leaving. And so I told her, I'll tell you soon. And as I got up to walk away, I was like, what exactly am I going to tell her? But I got in my car around 1:40. I was driving home. And at 2:05, my cell phone rang, an unfamiliar number, which if you're anything like me, you don't answer those because you assume it's a telemarketer, it's a wrong number. But I felt the Holy Spirit tell me to take that call. And so I pick up the phone and I cautiously said, hello. And the woman on the other end, she says, hi, is this Nona Jones? And I said, yes. And she said, I'm calling from Facebook. Now, how many of you have ever gotten a call from Facebook, right? So the exact same way you responded is the way that I responded. I was like, no, really, who is this calling me? And she said, no, really, I'm calling from Facebook. She said, listen, I don't know if you know this, but last week, the week before I resigned, she said, Mark just changed the mission of our company to focus on community building. She said, in one of the largest communities on earth that we have never focused on, our community is of faith. And your name was given to us as someone we should talk to about helping us think about this work. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, they're putting together like a committee or an advisory board or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, send me some information. I'll look at it over the weekend and we can talk on Monday. So I check my email and there's a job description in my email. 25 minutes after I resigned from my job, without clarity on why the Lord was leading me to resign, I get an email from Facebook with a job description. Now, the interesting thing is, my husband, who is here in the room, he is a pastor, and I remember when I first told him that the Lord was leading me to resign from my job, I remember he was like, okay, so are the Bills resigning too? Because we have, a house payment and car, and we have children. But it's interesting. He also said, well, if the Lord has called this to be, then he will also make provision for it. And so here I am, someone who's never worked in tech or social media before, getting a call out of the blue for a job I didn't even know existed. Never filled out an application. The first time I actually went to the company was the first day I started. I got my offer letter 2 weeks after that initial call, and they even called me and said, hey, can you send us your resume? Because we don't have your mailing address. We don't know what to put on the offer letter. So it just goes to show you that I believe that the reason I am in the role that I'm in is just frankly God. There's no other explanation. It's nothing I applied for. It's nothing I sought for. I truly believe that I have been called into this role. And I think I've been called into this role at a really interesting time because my background, even though I've worked in branding, I've worked in marketing, my background is really about community engagement, collective impact, and ministry. I myself have been in ministry since I was 17 years old. And so I feel like there's something really powerful that we can do through Facebook that we haven't historically done before. Because if you think about it, most people use Facebook right now just to distribute content, to tell people about your organization, to raise awareness about what you're doing. But the new mission of Facebook is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. So what does this mean? I'm going to talk to you in a kind of faith-based context, even though I know not everyone is in that space, because I want to kind of make a couple points to you as we kind of go down this journey together. So most people You know, in my world of faith-based partnerships, when you hear the word church, this is typically what comes to mind, right? It's a building with some seats and a platform and a mic. That's typically what we think of. But when you actually think of biblically what a church is and what the mandate for church was, it was all about the ocean of people, the vastness of the opportunity of faith for people beyond a particular gathering place. For people in the room who may be business owners, you know, I myself am an entrepreneur, and I think sometimes we can get very locked into the idea of a space, a building. This is where we have our meetings. This is where we conduct our business. And yet I believe social technology has now allowed us to go beyond an address into the vastness of space that most people occupy. In the United States of America right now, just to give you an example, so there are 355,000 churches, church buildings, okay? 355,000. Out of those 355,000, 2 out of 3 are either declining or plateauing in attendance. We have 2 out of every 3 churches in the United States of America that are experiencing decline or deterioration. Now, when you overlay that with the fact that every single month on Google, there are more than 30,000 searches that use the phrase church online. What that means is that people may not be showing up to the physical space, but they're still looking for connection. They're looking for an opportunity to be a part of something bigger. When I first got into my role, I talked with one of the social media directors at one of the largest churches in America. These people see like 30,000 people on a weekend. And I said to her, I said, listen, I would love to work with you and teach you how to use Facebook in order to drive engagement with people who may not show up to your building. What she said to me was, well, we're not really interested in that. We use Facebook to get people into the building. That's our goal for social media. So in other words, they and many people are using social media the way you would use broadcast media. Broadcast media is designed to send a message for people to receive and act upon, right? I mean, many people in this room have worked in broadcast. I myself have worked in broadcast. But social technology was never intended to be just A to B. It was meant to be A to B, B to A, C to B, C to A. It was meant to be multi-directional communication. And because we have essentially diluted the idea of social technology down to a one-to-one communication, we've actually not optimized for what it's capable of. So to put this in a real-world faith-based context, this is essentially what we believe success is for social technology. When it comes to a church or an organization, the idea is we are successful if we get people to show up to an event. But I think about the scripture, and in particular, Matthew 4:19, which I think is very interesting, and it aligns with the mission of Facebook right now, which is when Jesus was building the church, what he said, come follow me, and I will send you out to fish for people. So it was never his intention that the whole idea of church would be encapsulated in a building. It was never his intention. And for those of you who have studied scripture, you will not ever see Jesus say, hey guys, come see me at the temple this weekend. I have something really important I want to share with you, right? He gave the message right where people were. He connected with the people right where they were. And I believe that social technology gives you the power to do that. How most people are using it, however, is very passive. I want to address something that comes up all the time when I talk about Facebook, and that is when our algorithm changed. A lot of people felt, oh my gosh, well, when the algorithm changed, I saw that the engagement on my page went down. And they assumed that, well, that happened because Facebook wants to make more advertising dollars. I will tell you exactly why this happened. There was research that was done on well-being. And well-being is the sense of how do people feel after they interact with something? Do they feel better about themselves or worse? The research found that people who passively consume content have adverse effects to their well-being. What that means is people who just passively scroll content feel more isolated, they feel more depressed, They have more suicidal thoughts. But people who are connected with communities in digital context, people who are connected with communities feel a positive sense of well-being. They feel better about themselves. They feel more supported. So when we changed the algorithm, it was changed to what is now called meaningful social interactions. Meaningful social interactions means that the probability of people seeing what you share on social technology on our platform goes up if people interact with it more. And what that means is it's no longer about just sharing information. Now it's about catalyzing conversations. It's about inviting people into discussions. It's about understanding people's interests. It's about fostering relationships between people. So to take it back to a faith-based context, it's no longer about just sharing a post and inviting people to come to a weekend program, because the way that we tend to define success in those contexts is by how many fish we get in the fishbowl. I know this because I talk to church leaders literally all over the world, and right now success is by and large defined by how many people did we get into a program on Sunday. And if we want to be really successful, we're going to get a whole lot of fish in the fishbowl. But where this becomes a problem is the statistic I shared with you earlier, which is people are leaving. So what do? The definition of insanity is to continue doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Because what's happening now is by continuing to push the one-way idea of success being attendance, this is how most churches in America look. They're pretty empty. Most churches in America are about 100 members or less, and only 20% of people are actually showing up to a church. Now, I know here in Australia, I've heard the statistics are even fewer than that. But what that tells me is if 20% of the people are showing up, 80% are not, which means there's an opportunity to do something different. So what does this look like? When we tend to talk about, for example, church online, or even when we talk about online experiences, what we tend to be talking about is streaming an opportunity for people to watch something. And I tend to believe that watching something is just as passive as scrolling through content. So social technology is not just about giving people an opportunity to watch something. It's really about how do we invite people into the experience? How do we make this immersive? How do we connect with people's passions and interests and ideals? I want to give you an analogy to describe Facebook for you. So think of Facebook like it's your house. So you have your page, and your page is essentially like your front porch. It's the place that people can walk up to. They can see what you're about. They can take you in on the surface. You know, you see how people kind of decorate their front porch, and that tells you a little bit about them. But the challenge is a front porch isn't exactly where engagement happens, right? Like people aren't sharing their deepest desires and purpose with you on the front porch. No, that's typically reserved for the living room. So there's another product within Facebook, and this is the product that I want to spend the most time on today, because the new mission of Facebook is give people the power to build community. What that means is give people the power to connect with people and things that matter to them. The best product to facilitate this is Facebook groups. Now, the way the Facebook algorithm works is it looks at a bunch of different factors to determine whether or not you see content, all right? So the term that we use internally to describe the probability that you will see something is called distribution. Now, your distribution is a factor of what content you interact with, because the content you interact with, you'll see more of it. But even in that, the algorithm ranks certain types of content certain ways. So for example, family and friends content is considered the most important because these are people that you have relationships with. So the algorithm assumes that you probably want to see what your family and friends post. There used to be a time that pages were ranked almost as highly as friends and family. So you would see a lot of page content along with friends and family. However, now that the algorithm has changed, pages have been downranked, but group content has been upranked. Groups right now are considered Facebook's community building platform. And I don't know if you saw F8, which is our annual global developer conference that just happened about a week and a half ago. At F8, Mark shared with the world that our mission is central to everything we're building right now. What that means is when it comes to video, we're thinking about how is video going to drive conversations? How is it going to build community? When it comes to the Facebook marketplace, we're thinking about how are these opportunities to sell goods and services going to drive and build community? When it comes to every other surface that we have, whether it's pages, watch, newsfeed, search, how do all of these drive people into supportive communities? That's the question that we're asking ourselves. And Facebook groups is the platform where that can happen. I want to give you some very practical examples on how people are using groups to connect people. And then I'll talk a bit more about some examples that you could potentially use in your business as well as in your organizations. So there's a church that I've been working with, a very, very large church. They see about 150,000 people on a weekend. They have like 33 campuses, huge church. But they launched a Facebook group to connect people who were watching their live stream. And this gentleman made a post where he said, please pray for my friend Amber. She's thinking about taking her life. Now, I want you to think about something. For those of you who go to church, you may go to church and, there's a prayer card and you may fill out the prayer card and you drop it in the bucket and you hope that somebody prays for whatever it is that you need prayer for, but you don't really know what happens with it. In this instance, you can see 350 people commented on this one prayer request. When you talk about building community and building a sense of support and building a sense of engagement, there is no better example than this. I've seen in communities where people become very vulnerable. They start to share what's really happening in their lives. They start to share their hopes, their dreams, and their fears. And these are things that you will not see on a page. The reason for that is pretty simple. Page content is public. So you may make a post on a page, you may get a few likes, you may even get a comment, but it's not ever going to be something incredibly deep. It's not going to be something that's really digging into a person's needs and desires. In groups, people feel safe because you have to join the group in order to see the content. Now, to that point, there are 3 privacy settings in groups, all right? You have a public group. A public group is almost like a page. It's basically where you can join the group or not, but either way, you can see the content. I don't know why we have public groups. I talk to our engineers all the time. I'm like, it doesn't make sense for us to have a space that whether you join or not, you can see the content, but they exist, so I'm just telling you about it. The second type of group is the one that I recommend. It's a closed group. Closed groups require you to join them in order to see the content. When it comes to your business, for example, these are great ways to deliver an exclusive experience to people. Let's say that you have a business as, a life coach. Let's say that you work with people to try to help them achieve their personal goals and dreams. Well, imagine that you can create a community and connect the people that you're working with and deliver exclusive experiences to those people in that community. It becomes a value add for the services that you provide. The third type of group is a secret group. Secret groups are helpful if you have a very sensitive subject matter. And the reason why a secret group is considered secret is because you can't find it in search. You have to be invited to join that group. So let's say that you have a business that perhaps you work with people who are recovering from addictions. Well, those tend to be very personal situations, but they can also create senses of isolation. They can create senses of depression because people feel like they're by themselves. Well, just imagine if you created a secret group for the people that you're working with that connected them to each other so that they can see you're not alone in this. There's an entire community of people who are actually facing this addiction together. It becomes a wonderful value add for people to know that not only are you helping to lead them through that season of their life, but there are other people who are also living through that season as well. I want to tell you about a tool that I think is so exciting in groups. Of course, it's not available on pages, but this is so exciting for me. It's called social learning units. What social learning units allows you to do is it allows you to create sequential modular learning in groups. So let's say that you are, a personal instructor, you do fitness education. Well, you can create a group that people could subscribe to. There are ways to monetize it. You can have people subscribe to this group. And in this group, you can take people through how to build a nutrition plan. You create a sequential learning unit that people can take. And the cool thing about this is you can see on the back end who took it? So of all the people in the group, you get reporting on who actually took it. So when you have that client who says, oh, yeah, I saw that nutritional plan, you can actually say, actually, I pulled the report and you didn't take it. So before you actually call me to ask me a question, take the learning unit and then we can talk about it. It becomes a great way to do education in groups. There's another tool that I love in groups, and this is called get-togethers. So one of the things that we're actually very focused on Facebook is taking people from online to offline. Now, we do believe that there is tremendous value in connecting people online, but we also believe that the most meaningful engagement that people have is when they're connecting in real life. So what get-togethers allows people to do is it allows them to actually create lightweight events that they can then get each other together in real life. There's many ways that people use this, but I've seen this work especially well in very large groups that have a geographic dispersion. So let's say you have a group for all of Australia for some reason. Let's say you decide you're going to create Australians United group, and people from all over Australia are going to be in this group. Well, people can then create get-togethers for Brisbane, right here in Melbourne, for Sydney. They can get together because they're part of this group. So it becomes a great way for people who are part of large groups to actually get together in real life. And they can get together to go to plays, to go run around the park, to go surfing, which apparently is like the Aussie version of a breakfast meeting. I just learned when I was on the Gold Coast, I went for a run. I think it was like 6:30 in the morning, and like the whole beach was full of surfers. And I was like, how do you go surfing right before work? That's amazing to me. But you can create those types of communities for people to connect, and they find ways to connect regardless of their geographies. Another tool that my husband and I will use for our church community, and I strongly recommend this. So Facebook Live is a great tool. It's a great tool, and a lot of people use Facebook Live to stream events. So let's say you're, having some sort of a gala, or maybe you're doing a special event at your church. That's wonderful. You can invite people into the event. But another way that you can use Facebook Live is you can give people access to experts. My husband and I, what we'll do is, whether he was the one who taught on Sunday or if I taught on Sunday, what we'll do is that Monday, we'll just go live in our church's group for 30 minutes and we'll just share more information. Typically, we'll always have more in our notes than we were able to say. So we'll just share more information with the people in the community and we'll take questions. We'll have an opportunity to pray for people. And what it does is it kind of lowers the barrier to access. I've recommended this tool even for higher educational administrators. What I tell them is if you create a community for your students, imagine what it's like if you're the president of a university or you're the principal or maybe you're even the CEO of your company. Now people have access to you in a way that doesn't require you to physically be somewhere. It doesn't require them to physically be somewhere. A lot of the challenges that we have in business, I heard this said before, and I think it's true, is a lot of the challenges that we have in business is just getting people places. Well, what technology now allows us to do is we can convene regardless of where we are. So imagine you're in the US and your staff is here. You can still go live in your community to share whatever information you need to share. And you don't have to make people come into an office. You don't have to make people come to a place. So for me, community is really where it's at. And the thing about it that I want to leave with you today is I understand that there's been a lot of tension and frustration with how the algorithm has changed. What I'm trying to help you to understand, though, is the way to optimize with the algorithm and not against it is to build communities. Leveraging groups is the way to grow your reach and deepen your engagement because this is what Facebook is investing in heavily right now. And I realize that, there's been a lot of investment that people have made in building pages. What you can do, there are a couple ways that you can actually move people from your page to your group. You can link up to 250 groups to a page. So once you do that, not only does it give people visibility to your groups from your page, but you can then invite people from your page to your group. Perfect example, I'm working with an organization called PureFlix. They are a huge film organization. They have theatrical content as well as shows. And one of the things that we've done with their community, it's called the Pure Inspiration Community, is we're using their content to seed and catalyze conversations in their group. Because that's what it's all about. It's no longer about people just seeing your posts. It's about how are people interacting with it. So we're not making statements. We're asking questions. We're driving conversations. That's how you're going to see more people seeing and sharing your content. It's a whole new way of thinking, but I personally believe that this is the right way to go because, again, the research has shown that people who passively consume content feel worse about themselves than the people who are in community. You already have community, whether it's through the customers that you serve, whether it's through the staff who work with you, the people in your community physically can be part of a Facebook group. And this is how you grow your reach. This is how you expand your impact. I'm going to pause there so I can take your questions. I want to make sure that I leave ample time for the things that are on your mind, but I'm so excited to be here with you all and just get a chance to share with you the new direction that Facebook is taking as a company.